Ever wonder if, like, a bigger brain actually means you're smarter?
Mm,
It's a question that's been around forever, it seems like. But, get this. Even Einstein's brain wasn't anything special size-wise.
really?
Yeah. So today we're going deep on some research that really challenges that whole idea that bigger brain equals bigger smarts.
Okay.
We'll be looking at humans and the animal kingdom to figure out what makes a species or even a person intelligent.
It is fascinating how that myth has lasted so long.
Yeah.
You'd think brain size and intelligence are connected,
Right.
but it's way more complicated than that, as we'll see.
So let's unpack this. Our sources talk about this guy, Edward Roloff, a criminal from back in the 1800s.
Right.
He had like a record-breaking brain size, but instead of being a genius, he was, well, a criminal.
Yeah, Ruloff's case is a perfect example that brain size alone doesn't mean intelligence.
Right.
And it definitely doesn't tell us anything about their morals either.
It makes you wonder if a huge brain doesn't guarantee genius. What does the research say about the rest of us?
Well, a study from 2015 looked at data from over 8,000 people,
Whoa.
and they found that brain size only accounts for a tiny 6% difference in intelligence.
Seriously.
Yeah, that means 94% comes from other factors.
Wow, that's a surprisingly small number.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, imagine 100 people.
What are all these other things that contribute to intelligence?
Right.
Is it all genetics, or does our environment matter too?
It's definitely both.
Why?
But even that 6% link we mentioned might be off because of something called research bias.
Oh.
Studies that find a connection between brain size and intelligence are more likely to get published. And that changes how we see the issue.
That's a good point. Makes you think about how to really look at the research you read.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's some thought that other traits like empathy or creativity could be linked to brain size,
Right.
but we need more research on that.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if brain size isn't the only thing. What else is involved in these complex traits?
Let's switch gears for a second and look at the animal kingdom.
Okay.
I think it's so interesting how comparing different species can give us a whole new view on this.
You're right. For example, let's compare a hummingbird and a whale.
Talk about a difference in size.
Right.
Their brains must be completely different too.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
A whale's brain can be thousands of times bigger than a hummingbird's, but they show similar levels of, behavioral complexity.
So.
Both migrate, raise their young, even communicate in complex ways. Clearly, intelligence is about more than just the actual size of the brain.
So what's the missing piece here? What are we not seeing?
It's all about proportional brain size.
Proportional.
Yeah, the size of the brain compared to the body.
Right.
Hummingbirds and whales have brains that make sense for their overall size.
Okay.
It's like they have just the right amount of processing power for the body they have to use.
No.
Like having a strong engine in a small car compared to a huge engine in a semi-truck.
Makes sense.
Both work well for what they're meant to do.
Okay, that makes sense. So where do humans fit into this whole proportional brain size thing? Are we perfectly in proportion, or do we have a little advantage?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Humans are basically like scaled up primates.
Okay.
Our brains are bigger than you'd expect given our body size.
So we have like extra brain mass.
Exactly, like a surplus of neurons.
Extra brain mass. What do we even do with all that extra thinking power?
That is the question. That's what keeps scientists up at night.
Right.
And what's even more interesting is that this extra mass isn't just in one spot.
Yeah.
It's spread throughout the entire brain.
So we don't have like a supersized memory center or anything like that.
Not really. One theory is that bigger brains let us store more memories over our lives.
Okay.
Which makes sense because we live longer than other primates.
So like having a bigger hard drive to keep all those experiences and knowledge.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Individual memory capacity doesn't seem to directly relate to brain size. Yeah, you have people with incredible memories, but the areas in their brain for memory aren't that much bigger.
Huh. That's weird.
Yeah, it's still a puzzle.
It's so strange to think our brains are bigger than they need to be.
Right?
Is there like a limit to how much brain power we can even use?
That's a great question, and it leads us to a really important point about the metabolic demands of the brain.
Wait, are you saying a bigger brain could actually be a bad thing in some ways?
Not necessarily bad, but it's definitely something to think about. Brains use a lot of energy.
Yeah.
They take up about 20% of our body's total energy,
What?
even though they're only about 2% of our body mass.
20%? That's a ton of energy for such a small organ.
It's because of the constant activity of our neurons, those brain cells, They're always sending information, even when we're just relaxing, and all that communication needs a lot of energy.
Wow.
Actually, because of these limits, it's thought that only about 10% of our neurons are active at any given time.
Hold on to only 10%. So most of our brain cells are just hanging out, waiting for their turn.
It seems that way, yeah. It suggests that just having more neurons doesn't automatically make you smarter or give you more processing power.
So if bigger isn't always better, does that mean a smaller, more efficient brain could be better?
Hmm.
Like, could we think better and remember more with less brain mass?
It's an interesting idea to consider. Some researchers think that a smaller brain that's more efficient could actually lead to better cognitive abilities.
Interesting.
Think of it like comparing a big, clunky computer that uses a ton of power
Oh, like,
to a sleek, energy-efficient laptop.
right.
They both get the job done, but the laptop might be faster and use less battery.
That's crazy. Maybe we've been too focused on size when efficiency is the real key to unlocking our brain's potential.
It's something to think about. This really highlights how complex the brain is.
What?
We still have so much to learn about how it works, how it developed, and what really drives intelligence.
Makes you appreciate even the smallest brains you know.
Yeah.
Like a hummingbird with a brain the size of a poppy seed can handle these complex migrations and remember where thousands of flowers are.
Absolutely. And it shows us that intelligence comes in so many different forms across the animal world.
Yeah.
There's no single scale with humans at the top. Each species has a brain that works perfectly for their environment and what they need to survive.
So where does this leave us with understanding human intelligence?
I think the biggest takeaway is that brain size is just one small part of a much bigger picture.
Okay.
It's not as simple as bigger brain equals smarter person. There are so many other things: genetics, environment experiences, how efficient our neural networks are, and even what types of intelligence we value and measure.
It's humbling to know how much we still don't get about our own brains. We debunked this myth about brain size, but it feels like we've just scratched the surface of something much bigger.
Exactly, and that's what makes this research so exciting.
Right.
There's so much more to find out and understand.
Makes you wonder about all that untapped potential inside each of us. If our brains are already bigger than we need and they're only working at a fraction of their capacity,
Right.
what could we do if we could unlock all that potential?
Exactly what new levels of creativity, problem solving, maybe even consciousness would be possible.
Those are some mind-blowing questions. It's like we're exploring this final frontier and it's right inside our heads.
Exactly. And as we explore this frontier, we have to remember intelligence isn't just about logic and memory.
Okay.
It's also about things like emotional intelligence, creativity, and social skills.
Those are super important, especially these days. And it makes you wonder if those parts of intelligence are also influenced by more than just brain size.
I think that's very likely. We've seen how even creatures with small brains can be really complex socially and good at solving problems.
Right.
So it makes sense that human intelligence is shaped by a mix of things, both biological and environmental.
It really makes you think about what it means to be intelligent, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's a good thing. By moving past this narrow focus on brain size, we can start to see all the different ways intelligence exists in the world,
Right.
both in our own species and across the animal kingdom.
It's like we're opening up a whole new world of understanding.
Exactly, and that's what makes this journey so exciting.
Yeah.
There's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to question.
It really makes you think differently about what intelligence is, doesn't it?
Yeah,
We get so hung up on like IQ scores and tests
right.
that we forget all the other amazing ways our brains can be smart.
I totally agree. Think about the problem-solving skills of a parent calming down a crying baby,
Oh, yeah.
or the creativity of an artist expressing their feelings through music or painting.
Mm.
Those are types of intelligence, too, even if we don't always measure them.
That's so true. And those kinds of intelligence are so important for navigating like relationships in society.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if only focusing on like cognitive intelligence might actually be holding us back
Hmm.
from reaching our full potential as individuals and as a species.
Like we're limiting ourselves with such a narrow definition of intelligence.
Right.
What if we thought about it more broadly
Right.
and included all the different ways our brains can be brilliant?
I think we'd see a world where people feel more valued for their unique strengths and talents.
Yeah.
No matter their IQ or how they did in school, we might even start solving problems in more creative and collaborative ways.
That's a really cool thought. So what can we do to start changing how we see intelligence? How can we embrace this wider, more inclusive view?
I think it starts with recognizing and appreciating all the different types of intelligence we see around us.
Yeah.
Like, notice the problem-solving skills of a mechanic fixing a car,
Yeah.
the empathy of a therapist, helping a patient, the creative genius of a chef making a delicious meal.
Hmm,
Intelligence is everywhere, and it comes in so many forms.
that's a great point.
Hmm.
We need to stop limiting ourselves to this one-size-fits-all idea of intelligence
Yeah.
and start celebrating all the incredible potential people have.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by broadening our understanding of intelligence, we'll unlock new possibilities
Yeah.
and do things we never thought we could, after all, if our brains are already capable of so much more than we realize.
Yeah.
Imagine what we could do if we tapped into their full potential.
Well, on that note, I think we'll leave you with that thought. We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Debunked some myths, looked at cool examples from nature, and challenged the traditional ideas of intelligence.
It's been great diving into this with you.
Yeah, it has.
Hopefully you have a new appreciation for how complex and amazing the human brain is.
And maybe, just maybe, we've inspired you to explore your own inner space with a fresh perspective
I hope so.
and a sense of wonder. Because when it comes to the brain, the possibilities are truly endless.